Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now August 16th of 2023, and given that there's a lot of things happening right now in Hollywood, between everything of what Bob Iger's doing with Disney and everything with the WGA strike to the SAG situation, there's a lot of things that are really setting a lot of projects back, a lot of movies getting delayed indefinitely, including Deadpool 3, by the way. That was Bob Iger's call. And that has left a lot of people up in the air on whether or not, they really are embracing or getting hyped up for said projects by, be it Disney or any other studio out there. It really is all highly dependent on how things turn out. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into the subject, shall we? Now, Brie Larson, we've been talking about her on and off throughout the past couple of years, and throughout this year of 2023, it's been very quiet up until recently because we are gearing up toward the Marvels. Brie Larson, a couple weeks ago was talking about it and was actually getting involved in a lot of drama behind the scenes over at, of course, Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige and the Disney higher-ups. A lot of it had to do with a lot of cancellations, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But what's interesting here about Brie Larson, as you all know, insufferable actress, insufferable person, creates a lot of issues on set and did so for the Avengers cast. We all know this. This is public information. And what's interesting about Brie is the fact that she has such an ego to the point where she feels that she, of course, has the audacity to talk up to the higher-ups over at Disney and make all these crazy demands through Kevin Feige to reach out to them. Now, this is where things get intense. Now, with actress Brie Larson creating endless issues for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as she is creating unrealistic demands toward the Disney higher-ups via Kevin Feige, one major development has to do with what's been happening with Brie Larson in Hollywood lately. One significant update is that now many major Hollywood studios are beginning to blacklist Brie Larson from ever holding a chance in their future films or franchises/projects. Now, the studios that are now completely restricting Brie Larson from ever getting hired for projects now range from Paramount, Skydance, Columbia Pictures, Warner Brothers, and even Lionsgate so far, have now completely banished Brie Larson from appearing in any of their upcoming films or projects moving onwards, as they realize how unlikable she really has become within the Marvel films, and the latest Fast X by Universal Studios, let alone her commercials associated with Nissan. A growing number of Hollywood studios are jumping on the list to essentially avoid hiring Brie Larson, as they are using her as a textbook example of both an insufferable actress and one that creates problems on set for specific films, much like what she did with the Avengers cast. Now guys, let me pause here for 1 second before we get to the next big piece of this development, is that this is very much similar to what has been happening to Kathleen Kennedy, except at this point, pretty much all studios are through with Kathleen Kennedy. They never want to give her a chance, and never want her involved as a producer and as an executive producer. More on that in a second. What's interesting here about Brie is that for the longest time, a large chunk of the movies that she has worked on have been associated, with, of course, Marvel. Specifically now, of course, Disney, etc., etc. And we all know that Brie Larson had some of their films that were widely acceptable before in the past, before she really became how she, is today. We all know that she just goes off on these tantrums all the time. She always, gets in people's face, says these crazy things, much like Rachel Zegler and Phoebe Waller-Bridge do. We all know that. And given that there's a lot of things happening right now with Hollywood, the WGA strike, everything happening with that, of course, is a big deal. Everything happening with SAG is not, good for the industry, and this is why there's so many people getting very defensive as well. Now, what's interesting, though, is that she has been associated with Warner Brothers before in the past, and they want nothing to do with her again. In the Monsterverse, we're talking about the Godzilla/King Kong movies. She was in Skull Island. If you guys did not know, that was a Warner Brothers film / Legendary Pictures, and they want nothing to do with her anymore. And not that she was in the talks of reappearing in a future Monsterverse film, but she's crossed off that list now as well. So that brings us to the next big development about this and why it actually involves Universal Studios. Let's get into this. A similar thing happened with Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy, like I said before, where essentially all Hollywood studios want nothing to do with her ever getting a chance to work on a franchise as a producer. Now, Brie is reportedly aware about all of the studios banishing her, essentially, and even Universal is now in the talks of ditching her gigantic role in Fast and Furious 11 and 12 that are said to be titled Fast X Part 2 and Part 3. Additionally, Brie is already getting herself into a conflict with Kevin Feige as she got into arguments with Disney's decision to drop her from having multiple cameos from Marvel shows and even a sequel to the Marvels, of course, getting cancelled and called off already. So, look, this is the problem with Disney as well, is that they get ahead of themselves way too fast. They greenlight these projects behind closed doors, and they do this before the film is even a success. A great example is, well, if you look at the Rian Johnson trilogy that got announced back in 2017 of November, right around there, during the earnings call, Bob Iger presented this, and that was like a month before The Last Jedi dropped. That actually played a role, believe it or not, in a lot of fans getting overly confident in Rian Johnson, because everyone assumed, whoa, Rian got a trilogy? They announced this a month before the movie, it must be that great then. And that really dragged in a lot of fans to go into the theater seats. And sometimes you make yourself wonder, does Disney do this as a tactic? Well, in one scenario, yes, they did. You know, we all know that everything of what happened before with the David Benioff and D.B. Weiss trilogy, that was a big ongoing thing. It was supposed to start in 2022. They did that to essentially kickstart Star Wars coming back to the movies again after The Rise of Skywalker and after that hiatus that Kathleen Kennedy created. However, we all know that that fell apart through creative differences and they walked away. I believe they got a Netflix deal, and a lot of things, you know, just went wrong. So Brie Larson, in this sense, I think that she deserves everything that she's getting. She's insufferable. She says crazy things in interviews. She doesn't know how to handle herself. There's no self-control there. And let's not forget about the fact that she's just a cringe-worthy actress. I don't know about you guys, but I just do not like those Nissan commercials, especially when she's promoting all the various vehicles, especially the Nissan Z. So they, of course, most likely are going to be done with her once that contract is up. I would not be surprised as well. Interestingly enough, though, Hollywood seems to be waking up slowly but surely. I'm not going to get too overconfident about that. It's a very slow process. I think that Universal is waking up a bit with, you know, the Nintendo movies and everything happening elsewhere with their parks, with Epic Universe coming out and about. I mean, Universal, you know, they kind of are more on our side. So are Paramount and Skydance. So I would like to hear what you guys have to say about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
Gun in hand, we are alone again. From night to moon, we hear them moans again.